you're like, what's up? I've been waiting to come back. Hello. Wow. Oh, welcome, new community. It is such a joy. If we have not met then, my name is Taylor May. I am the host of Creative Mornings Detroit. I was just reflecting last night on when I had the opportunity to bring Creative Mornings back in January of 2024. And I was like, so nervous. Like, I literally remember having the shower nerves of like, oh my gosh, like all these people are gonna come. So just think of, fast forward 2 years, and this is like this. It's pretty surreal. That's because of all of you. So thank you so much. And I also have to say, I feel really proud of us. Like, proud for like the Detroit creative community. Like, give a round of applause to yourselves. You guys are literally crushing it. New restaurants, new brands, new businesses, new pieces of art being created. Like, look what we are creating together. And I just always want to remind us the intention of this gathering is just to take one moment out of all of our busy, crazy lives where we're doing the things, we're creating the things, to come together, to intermingle, to exchange energy, to exchange ideas. My favorite stories that come out of Creative Mornings are, oh my gosh, I met this person at Creative Mornings and now they're like my best friend. Or, you know, I met this person and now we're starting a company together. I hear so many stories like that because of just what happens on this once a month in this room. And so special. Can't thank you enough for being here. I'm going to move into some just ad hoc announcement things, then we're going to get into why you're all here, our amazing panel. So first, we have Washi. Everyone, freaking round of applause for Washi. He's a literal legend. The fact that he's playing for us today is absolutely unreal. Thank you. And I want you right here, there's a QR code. You know what I'm going to do for my people that come? We are going to donate because if you saw on Instagram yesterday, we announced our partnership with the Underground Music Academy. Washi, do you want to say anything about the Underground Music Academy? I know I'm putting you on the spot. So you can say, no? Great. So, training for the up-and-coming DJs, amazing work. And so, reach out. Look at them up, but please donate. We are in partnership with them for the whole year. And so we're going to have different DJs from their programs upcoming rotation. But the founder, the leader, the legend himself, Washi, we have today. So truly amazing. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds to click that QR code and donate. 5, 4, donate, 3, 2, 1. Amazing. Thank you. And more thank yous always have to come. This is a volunteer-driven situation that you are in right here. That means blood, sweat, and tears from people that are not getting paid, which is truly insane. So our collaborative partners, you can see them all right here. Truly amazing stuff. And then we have, for the first time this year, have started a partnerships program. And so you'll see some of them are on display over here. If you've not visited them yet, please do. We have Artena Law, Art and Frame, Boketo Center, Envy Bookkeeping, Franco, and Gold and Grit Studio. And we're still looking for a couple partners. And so if you want to have a table every month, if you want to be, a special feature to this community, I really look at this personally as a resource guide for this community, like the official bookkeeping, the official communications team, the official photography studio. And I know there's a lot of you that do that work too, but I want you to really use these partners as a resource because they are absolutely wonderful, and frankly, I'm a customer of all of them, which is pretty cool. And also, coffee, James Oliver. Who loves James Oliver? Yeah, so good. So thank you to James Oliver. We are doing a different coffee partner every month. That's something different than we've done in the past. So you'll get to look forward to a different coffee each month, which is pretty awesome. That was, I already said to partner with us. So if you're interested, just come find me or shoot me a DM or shoot me an email. And one of those partners being this amazing space, the Detroit Design District. And so this space has so much history, there's so much going on. I don't know if you've heard of the Miami Design District. The future of this space and this whole campus is like that, the Detroit Design District. And so there's going to be tenants in this space, but there's still going to be this event space on the floor. There's going to be a hospitality build out. And so right now, if you want to get involved with what's going on in this space, you can host an event like this. So a dinner party, a pop-up, a music event, whatever you have. Again, just come find me or shoot an email at events@thedetroitdesigndistrict.com. There is an upcoming event in bulk coming up in this space. You may or may not have heard of it. And so check that out. I have the QR code right there. There you have 5 locations. This is one of the locations. It's a truly amazing event. And I know the DDD is really honored to be a host of that. And then the invitations continue. Tonight, Yes, tonight, and I have special guests from Two James Spirits if you want to come up. We have a kickoff party. I know this feels like a kickoff party, but I love a celebration and a gathering, obviously. So we're going to keep the party going at Two James Spirits, and I'm going to have them talk about what we can look forward to tonight if you are around.
Thank you, everyone. We're super excited to host you guys tonight. We are Two James. We are in Corktown. We have a distillery in Corktown. We have a tasting room. So at our tasting room tonight, we have a whole new menu that we're launching with you guys. We're super excited about. We make all our syrups in-house, and we have all of our distillery liqueurs tonight and special tastings for you guys. Everything is 20% off to celebrate this launch and to celebrate you guys. So we can't wait to see you tonight.
Thank you. So 5 p.m. tonight, if you are around, bring other people. The intention is to celebrate and to continue the connections that you made here this morning. And now, what you've all been waiting for. It is time for our panel. We have Don, Lizzie, Eileen, up from Amazing Places. You're going to learn from them. Round of applause. Come on up. Hi, guys. There's your mics. I have this awkward little stool. Let's try to situate here.
Oh, I thought maybe we'd sit in the order.
I know that always had that.
We can switch.
I'm now answering as Lizzie.
Yeah, I love it. That always bugs
switch.
people, I know. You can do whatever you want.
I didn't think about it. I went straight to the end.
That's okay. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being a part and for doing this. I have questions for us, like I said to you, but I feel like this conversation could go so many directions. But I want us to get grounded and rooted of like, who are you? So one, give us the mini background story. And I want you to also tell us like, what are you just excited to create this year within your work? Like, let's just start there. Don, get us started.
First of all, Taylor's energy is incredible, right? But first of all, I'd like to get to know the audience. So on 3, can I get a what up though? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Feel at home with that, okay? And also just a couple quick questions for y'all. I promise I'm gonna stay on track. So who here in the audience considers themselves a creative? Raise your hand. Who has a career or a job in corporate and tries to be creative in that space? Who's an entrepreneur and has to be creative whether they like it or not? Okay, cool. I just like to know, who I'm talking to, right? I'm Don Dudley. I'm a marketing director for Foot Locker. I'm also the co-owner of Clean Sneaker Care. My partner, Clue, is here as well. His birthday was yesterday. Say happy birthday to my brother.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm from Detroit. I went to Cass Tech. I went to Wayne State. I lived in this neighborhood, so Detroit is home for me. I love the city. I love seeing how everything is coming together. Like you mentioned, the creative community that's just building here has always been here, right? If you're from the city, you know that the culture has always been really strong and deep in that. But just seeing the attention that the city has been getting from people within it and people investing in it, that's really dope to me as well. So for me, what I'm looking forward to this year is just continuing to build kind of like laterally with people. I think sometimes we always think of networking as up, like we have to network with the VP or the next person or whatever, but we forget the people who are around us and the creatives and the things that they're working on and how we can pour into each other.
Thanks, Don. Amazing. Eileen? Two hard acts to follow.
My name is Eileen. I'm a creative director at Kassab, where I work with a lot of wonderful creative folks to launch campaigns. Prior to that, I was the group creative director at Square, where I led a global group of brand creatives. And before that, I was an entrepreneur too, running a studio and co-founding Grand Circus Magazine, which has its home here in Detroit. We're really excited to be bringing that back. So yeah, I'm excited. I want to give a big thank you to the Creative Morning team. This is a phenomenal production.
I have to follow everyone. I should have switched with that thing. Hi guys, I'm Lizzie. I'm the Associate Creative Director at StockX. Very lucky to have been there for the whole time we've been running. So I got all the good dirt, but came up as a photographer and a designer primarily, made my way into art direction. Worked for kind of like a slew of entrepreneurs, same thing, kind of just the grind, the hustle that we all know.
across like a wide range of special projects in Detroit, and then was lucky enough to end up at StockX and get to figure out what this crazy thing means to the city and to the world, and very, very blessed to be here with this crew.
Thanks, guys. Round of applause. What a squad. I want to know, so obviously you are all involved in co-creating brand in some way, and I feel like that term has gotten kind of elusive in a way, like it's really just thrown around, but no matter what, a brand is an experience, right? And so you're in this, business of creating experiences for people. How do you know, because you're leading teams, you're doing the thing, when an idea in your brand is clear enough for a team to execute on? Like, how do you know, like, this is a good idea, let's go? Like, what is your threshold there? What does that decision-making process look like?
Yeah, I can go. So in my space with marketing, you wear multiple hats, right? So sometimes it's a photo shoot, sometimes it's an experiential activation. My team specifically within Foot Locker, we have a strong focus on community. So creating for me looks like building experiences, right? So for us, when you think of Foot Locker, you obviously think of footwear, but our space is more around community. So our pillars are education and economic development, right? So if I'm not providing an educational experience or economic development, giving people money, we're not doing our job. Back to the drawing board. So when an idea comes up or when we're presenting something, I always challenge myself and our team, like, hey, if we're not checking these two things, then why us? We're not brand marketing, we're not product marketing, we're a community. So this looks good, this looks fun, but it might not be for our team. So it'll be very clear from that standpoint whenever you're being pitched to, or whether it's an external vendor or somebody talking to you, hey, if it's not checking these boxes, it's not necessarily for us, right? Which doesn't mean it's a no. I might pass you off to somebody else, right? But for our team, we have to hit those boxes. And when it comes to community, when you hear that, you hear different. Based on who you are and where you're from, you might hear different things, right? You might think about where you grew up. You might think about the people around you. So being really conscious of, like, do I have a feeling about this? Am I creating a feeling by creating this experience as opposed to just creating an environment to sell?
Would you all add to that?
I really feel like starting with clear communication with my team is the best way to kind of unearth whether an idea has legs, whether we should invest in it. I always believe that I'm surrounded by world-class creatives, experts in their own right. The strategists and cross-functional partners we have are all coming with a wealth of experiences. So I love to make space to hear people's ideas. And as long as there's room to communicate the reasoning and the rationale, a lot of times we can find a home for those ideas. So I think it really starts with a lot of communication and trust in the people that we work with.
Definitely echo. I think for me too, deep in research, form follows feeling, right? So anytime we're working from our perspective, it's like coming up as a photographer, coming up as a designer, as an art director. If you are an individual contributor, you can have the idea and you have the execution. I don't have to explain it to anyone if I'm sort of like one track. But working with the team, building on what Eileen was saying, if it doesn't make sense, if the idea doesn't make sense to my copywriter, to my strategist, to my photographer, to the producer, if everyone can't execute on that clear vision, that feeling first, like, we're not going anywhere. So I think, to me, it's all about communication, it's about that trust, but I think it's like, no one wants to say this, but an airtight pitch deck, an airtight production Bible, but I think, to me, it really is about that.
That's so good. Would you be willing to share, anybody, a specific project that you're currently working on or recently worked on where you kind of applied all these principles that you just shared? Give us a kind of sneak behind the curtain within kind of these organizations that you're working with.
I can jump in. It's not a secret now, but we're slowly working on rolling out a new brand refresh for our visual brand. So starting with what it looks like, right, but coming from what it feels like. So we, StockX started in 2015, 2016 officially. It was a totally different landscape, it was a totally different consumer, and a totally different person who was plugged in at that time. And now we have a wider audience. We're meeting people at touch points that we weren't meeting them at before, right? Before, they were coming to us on their own because of the passion for the space, passion about the art form of sneakers, and now we're sort of reaching people at a totally different medium. So what does that look like here and now, but also how does that take us a little bit further on beyond the prevail. So starting with the message is the biggest thing for us. So we spent probably too many months figuring out like what does this look like. We mulled over every single old tagline we had had as a brand, figuring out what like the actual heart and core of what we mean to our consumer is, and operating from that space. And everything sort of just followed suit there, and we went back to the drawing board in a lot of the ways. You guys are going to see probably rolling up across our social, but yeah, getting back to data and kind of starting at fact for us informed all of the feeling informed.
I'm just nosy and curious. Like, what did you find in the data that was most meaningful to people about the brand StockX?
That's a very good question. I think at the root of everything, I mean, at the root of our brand is trust. And even people who aren't shopping on our platform, they're using our platform as a resource. That was one of the biggest things that came out of, you know, all of our research, and has been sort of part of why we started in the beginning. It was break e-commerce, give people the power to understand what they're buying, what they're investing in, how that translates into their collection, you know, break the black market, essentially. And it's still a thing people use StockX for all the time. I mean, we see creators who, you know, maybe aren't massive customers just yet, but they're using our platform in their own content for their own brands just to reference pricing data, release dates, sort of just like even collections, trend forecasting. That's something that's become really important to our audience, and I think sort of like the global space around sneakers. So that was really the biggest thing that sort of started driving this return to data, return to transparency as the core touch point.
I love that. I love when it's like, you look at a brand like StockX and from at first glance you'd be like, oh, it's just like kind of rooted in creativity. And obviously creativity is such a broad word, but it's like there's always something deeper beneath the surface. And so that is so cool, like within the ecosystem, like that true role, you know, back to the first question of clarity, that you're actually, you know, giving to your audience as well. So that's really cool.
Go
ahead.
Yes, please. I'm going to actually answer your question. The transparency sort of as the core star is now actually making our way into the design. That was where I was ending with that, is that you'll literally see in some of our new work, we're playing with like literal transparencies and layering, and sort of how we're taking translucency and tactile feel, bringing that back to the design.
That is so cool. I can't wait to see. Love it. Eileen, I'm so curious, your work in AI at Kassab. I have so many questions, but what have you been working on recently? Tell us all the things.
Well, I was thinking about the other question about communication, but also with AI, I think what I love to encourage is just like building a familiarity around AI. It is rapidly evolving and changing. Each model, each agent, each company is in a race. And once you build up a familiarity, you have this like savviness and finesse, how to integrate it into your process, which one looks the best for what you're trying to do. A lot of the models are trained, you know, have a better skill set, I guess, or a better aesthetic than another. And I think you wouldn't be able to easily assess, you know, the quality of the output without building the familiarity across a lot of them. So I really encourage everyone, you know, get in there, try them all. We have this resource to us, the support and backing of our, you know, company, to encouraging us to learn new technology. And I think it's such an opportunity when someone is like, hey, learn on the job. So that, if that answers your question. But the thing about communication that I thought was really interesting this past year is we launched testimonials, reaching out to our Kassab customers, trying to understand their hopes and their dreams, their financial story. And the thing about financial stories is that the vernacular isn't the way that banks or financial institutions typically talk about them. So this work was incredibly important to give access to, you know, the tools and the education that Kassab provides by speaking directly to customers and putting their voice kind of on this platform. Communication plays a role because I was working with two very new Kassab creatives, and when you're working on something that's going to represent the community or your brand, I think being able to articulate where we are today, where we're heading, what this project means, kind of you know, bringing everyone along, it's like a ripple effect, because ultimately you go and you work with the director, you work with producers, they're interacting with these customers, and they're an extension of your brand. So I think it starts with your ability to create a feeling that trickles into, you know, a customer opening up that might not be used to lights and the camera and the interview. So that's what your question made me think about. I'm really excited about.
That is super cool. Wow, love everything you said. Dun, what would you say?
Yeah, so the clarity in kind of like projects and a project example. So is anyone here in the fashion space, a designer, creative in that space? Yeah, so if you are, you're probably familiar with an organization out of New York. It's called Harlem's Fashion Realm. And excuse me, sorry. During Fashion Week in New York, they host a lot of the events in the city and so on. They've collaborated with a lot of dope brands. And their focus is largely around creating space for female designers and for designers of color. I rock with that. So, working with them, I said, hey, what is something that we can do together that also aligns with our brand, right? You know, again, get into like a clear brief, right? Because you don't think of Foot Locker as fashion necessarily, right? You think of footwear. So trying to bridge those two gaps, I'm saying, okay, cool. So as I'm working through our teams, well, a good way for clarity is to ask a lot of questions, right? You know, so I'm asking our team, hey, what are our goals? What are some things that we're looking for across the organization, even if it's not in my department, right? Our brand team had identified, like, hey, we have a gap with women, specifically young women. I said, word. Well, we have an organization who wants to work with us, who already has that audience. Let's build something with them. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can work with somebody who's already doing the work and uplift them. We have X amount of million followers on our platform. Their platform may be smaller follower count wise, but they're more engaged, right? Because they're following this very specific account for these very specific reasons. So we started off by developing a program with them. They do a design retreat where designers from all over the world are able to visit the headquarters of like LVMH or Macy's or Nordstrom, Foot Locker, Nike, that are anchored in New York, and meet with people from marketing and get perspective and things like that. So we hosted a design retreat in our space in New York, but we also created a social media campaign, which you can go on like HFR's page or the Foot Locker page and see it now. And my goal with that was, how do we put more emphasis and eyes on Black women designers and creatives, right? You know, so the whole campaign is called Pull Up on Purpose. So we basically shot a series of content, kind of like Get Ready With Me style videos of basically creators putting the outfit together, but every piece, head to toe, accessories, shoes, everything down to the shoes, had to come from a Black designer, right? You know, so they told that story, we were able to do that, and we were actually able to get Nike to sponsor that project, right? You know, so I had to come up with this idea and pitch this concept, and again, we families all let y'all in on it. It cost like $150,000 for us to do this campaign. We didn't have to use any of our budget at all because we were able to articulate a very clear output for this brand and our brand, where they were like, cool, here's the bread, go do what you said you was gonna do. Right, you know, so now you see this content on social media that has amassed X amount of thousands of views and so on, that their KPI is checked, right, in the sense of like, hey, we got visibility to Air Force One, which was something that we knew was like a big pillar for them at the time. For me, I got off what I wanted to get off, right, you know, I was able to create a platform that uplifted the people that I knew needed more eyes on them, right, you know, so starting with like a clear brief and a clear idea, but you have to understand, especially when you're working for an organization that, you mentioned something around like how banks the language is, right? You know, it's the same way when you work for a big company or organization, they use certain language, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is transactional. So as a creative with you in that space, you have to find that balance of, how do I create the things I want to see out in the world or that need resources behind them, while I have this big engine behind me, while I have all of these resources behind me, and you can do both, you can.
So good. Two things that are standing out from what you said that I'm going to be thinking about. That clarity is the bridge to great collaboration, which great collaboration creates great results. And two, creativity is all about asking questions. Everything you just said came from you were asking great questions, which makes me curious from all of you, what are maybe common, like if we were to do brain surgery, if we were to look into your brain and say, what are the top questions that are always kind of going through your brain in your own creative and leadership process? What are those? I know that's kind of an on-the-spot specific question, but what are maybe the common ones that you're finding yourself asking yourself?
Yeah, I'll kick off. My very first one, and even like Clue will attest to this too, I'll say like, why us? Right, you know, I think there's so much noise and so much content and so many projects out in the world, and there's so many things that you can do. I'm not saying like, you know, you don't explore those things, but come back to like, why us? Why does this fit our brand? Why does this fit our organization? If anybody can do it, then maybe we shouldn't, right? You know, and is it in alignment with where we want to go and what we want to see? Is really what that question is asking, right? You know, so when you think about social media trends today or ads and so on, it's very trendy, right? Use this audio, use this song, do this dance, right? And you see people trying to follow that trend, right? You know, and it'll get you engagement like now, right? You know, but that's not a strategy for the long term, right? So when you look back in a year, 2 years, X, Y, and Z, and you look at all this kind of like random things that you didn't really build into your brand, right? That takes time sometimes, right? You know, so if you're looking at, should I go to an event? Should I speak on the panel? Should I meet this person? Should I network? It should always come back to that question of like, well, why, right? Am I doing it just for bread? Which we need money, so sometimes that's cool, right? You gotta figure out like, you know, that's up to you as like a business owner to understand like, is this opportunity worth it value-wise? But asking yourself like, why am I doing this? It doesn't make sense for me as an individual because you also are a brand as an individual, but also does it make sense for the organization that you represent?
How about both of you? What questions?
I think I'm a bit of a dreamer because I start out and just think, you know, like, what could this be? Which is like a really simple question, but starting a creative process, I'm always excited to dream of what the world could be in response to a brief for almost any creative project. And I used to work in branding, aside from campaigns, and even then it always starts with what could this be? I think the next step after that is, you know, building the scaffolding to support that idea, whether that's through insights that you find, a well-articulated concept statement, all the references that you have, you know, insights back into the purpose, the objective, the audience, but I truly believe sometimes like your innate curiosity and your intuition and the things that inspire you and make you curious, there's a unspoken magic that happens that probably makes it something worth exploring, and that scaffolding of supporting that, or the legs underneath that dream, I think you'll find that, you know, your ideas have homes. And if you can't build that scaffolding, I think, you know, that's also a signal of like, maybe this dream needs to be baked a little more.
I mean, those are on the list. I think to try and add anything to those beautiful responses, I think one of the biggest questions, sort of building off what you said, Dawn, is like, is this us or is this them? Like, is this idea that's coming up, is it a reaction or a response? Are we responding to the brief? Are we figuring out, like Eileen said, that scaffolding and constructing something that actually has legs to stand on? Can it move, or is it a reaction to something surface level that, is it going to matter in, what's the 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? I think that's one of the big things for us, for sure. And especially with, I mean, all three of the brands we're working with are moving so fast, and so much of what we have to do is a reaction. There's a time and place, but taking the time to step back, be that response, that dream, that's the guiding force behind everything. And I guess the only other question would be, can we make the logo smaller? That's my internal North Star.
Oh no, I'm the make the logo bigger person. Oh, I love it. It's like a balance of like just big, beautiful hope and like practicality. But I think also in what you said, there's that you said at the end, you said if it doesn't have the scaffolding to come around it, then it's not baked enough. So I think that's kind of what you're both saying in a way, because I think it's easy to get lost in the dream, but I think the dream is the place to start, because why wouldn't you start there?
And, you know, sometimes that the need to bake it more, sometimes it's just so that you can communicate it to the other people that need to build it with you. So, yeah.
Like like if you can't, I do that for myself personally. Like if I can't write it down, like it's not ready yet. To, you know, once it's communicated, then it's like, okay, we got legs, we got traction. So that's really, really great. So all of you work within these larger organizations, but you have your own personal tastes, your own personal flair. I want to know a little bit more about your own personal tastes and how it compares or contrasts within the organizations that you lead, and how much are you allowed to bleed into that, and how much do you have to restrain your own personal taste from the work you do on behalf of these organizations? Whoever wants to take it.
So the question is kind of around like your taste level within the organ.
Yep.
Yeah. So for me, it's like 100%. Like you should be like that every day, right? You know, I think that especially in a creative space, because somewhere along the lines you got hired or contracted or whatever it was because of you. Like somebody saw something that you did or who you are that resonated strong enough for them to bring you on to that thing. Even if it's an internal project, if somebody's like, we need you on this project, you know. So I think that you got that from being you. Like, sure, maybe you went to school, maybe you did an internship, whatever. But so did a lot of people, right? You know, so the things that make you like dope and unique are just you being yourself. Those learned experiences, the culture that you bring with you, right? You know, so I think for me, I've made it a point to lead from a space of passion, right? So like if I'm not moved to do something, whether it's in my professional career or, you know, as an entrepreneur, then I don't want to do it, right? You know, because I'm not going to give my all to it if I don't actually care about it, right? You know, and I think in the spaces that, you know, I work within like footwear and sneakers, like I'm a consumer first, right? You know, I'm on StockX, right? You know, I'm on the platforms, I'm looking at it as a consumer first. Unfortunately, I've aged out of what our core customer is at Foot Locker because I'm not a teenager anymore. You know, so sometimes I'm like, what the fuck does 6'7" mean? I don't know. Right? You know, but I'm still aware of what's going on. I have my taste level that I bring to the experiences and things as well. You know, so I think that that's really important to keep, right? You know, because again, if you're looking at market research, you're going to see so many trends happening all the time, like quarter zips, right, versus Nike Tech. Like there's always going to be something like that's bubbling up or trending. And sometimes it is good to react to it if it makes sense to take advantage of that opportunity that aligns with your brand. But if it doesn't align with you, you know, as an individual and you're moving that way, it's going to show. You're going to be able to tell, and customers will be able to tell, the world will be able to tell that you're not really passionate about it or you didn't. You see it all the time when people get like flamed for like picking the wrong collaborator or the wrong creative director or whatever. It's like, why? That don't even fit. Why would they do that? You know, type of thing. When there was so many other clear choices, it's clear to you because you live and work and breathe in that space all the time. So I do think that it's important to bring those experiences and that taste level to a real place within the workplace.
So good.
Oh, that's too good. You gotta stop going first. I mean, I truly the only thing I think I could add is like taste, yes, gets you in the door, but trust is the thing that sustains it. So, you know, and I mean, you made a really interesting point about aging out of like your consumer. Our core consumer is like a young Black or Latin male who lives in like a big city, coastal world, and none of those things. But I have great reverence for the culture and I have great respect in building trust so that I'm able to tell those stories. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, you know, the taste is going to be the thing that polishes it up. But if the idea doesn't mean anything to the person we're talking to, then like, what's the point? So, you know, my taste level is same thing, gets you in the door, but it's the thing that we're all sort of using just as a tool to get to like the meat of the real thing that actually means someone and means something to someone and tells the story that's going to hit the mark.
What you, Eileen?
I was marinating. I was like buffering. I was like,
Loading.
I'm loading. It's a really good question and topic to discuss. I think taste is really important. It is, you know, influences sensibilities, and especially if you're working with a team, I've found that like my taste signals something that I don't have to verbalize. I was marinating, trying to figure out how to better break that down, but when I work with stylists or art directors or designers, there is just a human connection, some nonverbal thing that your taste kind of emanates, and it helps to bring a certain level of work back. And I think, you know, when you talk about like organizations choosing you for your taste, I think that is a value, is that you are connecting, you are relating in this kind of special and unique way. I think I have to really build that scaffolding because my taste is pretty unique. I think being curious and a dreamer and being open, I wonder a lot. I like novelty. I like so many different things that I have to find the right time and the right place and the right project to tap into that sometimes. So I think for me, you know, it's always really important that I'm building ideas from a really good foundation so that taste becomes something that is building into it constructively and not, you know, unilaterally plastering it with my taste.
I do want to add to that as well, though. I think that, especially again, like when you're working for a brand or even working for yourself, the taste level also creates a standard, right? You know, because usually brands have a brand identity, right? You know, so your taste level can only go so far sometimes because, like Liz was saying around like logos and placement and things like that, you know. But I think the more that you kind of communicate and lead with that taste level, you start to create a standard across your team or your partners who also, they'll get to a point where they're like, hey, yo, this isn't premium enough. We're not going to bring this to them. We know, we've seen how you react to this before, right? Or to a version of this. So now, before it even gets to you, people are also tweaking it based on that taste level as well and saying like, yo, maybe we need to change this a little bit more, right? You know, type of thing. Maybe we need to tweak it a little bit more. And ultimately it's creating an intention, right? So that you're slowing down and not just output. It's like, yo, does this feel good? Does this look good? Is it dope? And then again, when you're thinking about like the output, a person who's going to see it, again, is it going to make them feel something? Some things are very like communication based, like you need to read this and there's a clear takeaway, like a call to action. But some things are also like an aesthetic, right, that you want to achieve or get off, and that part is important too.
I think even to building upon both of that, you guys both made, I think Eileen, you made a great point about like the people that you're working with in how that collides with your taste. I think a huge thing about, you know, for our audience and my taste is like a huge part of that is having the taste of like, this isn't my story to tell. And so who can I bring in from who is part of the community or who, you know, speaks directly to this story, to this thing, to this environment that we want to sort of amplify. And like part of my taste is going like, I know this is not for me. So who can I build upon? Who can I support with my taste? Who can I elevate and bring the larger sort of team together to create that story that actually is going to resonate? And like, maybe my taste is like curating those people, but it's like, that's the bigger point is like, your taste also has to be knowing when it's not for you. And I think that's, you know, one of the biggest things in our industry.
It's like you're a creative liaison almost and elevating other people and telling those stories. So beautiful. I feel like it wouldn't be a panel in 2026 if we didn't talk about AI and the role of AI. Eileen, I'm so curious with your work with AI and at Cash App. What are you working on? How is Cash App utilizing AI and what you can tell us? And how does that maybe apply to all of us in the room in some way?
Yeah, I mean, AI is, it's a tool that we are building into our processes and into our products, which is really exciting. We did a big release where we were talking about all of the features that we'll be introducing into the product, but for the creative team, the truth is that AI is an accelerator, but we are having to learn these models, build that familiarity, but at the same time, we have to hone taste. Because as the volume and the velocity of our work increases, our discernment needs to get a lot stronger. We need to be able to have conversations around, you know, is this at the quality, is this at the bar, how is this changing or informing our style? One of the major things that we did recently is publish a set of values and principles that we can share out with the creative org, because I think it's really important to align on a set of principles when we're working with new technology so that we can, you know, unlock everyone's speed to, you know, playing with it, teaching people. We do a lot of creative shares with AI. But I think that's really important because without those discussions of ethics and values and principles, it reflects the brand, and I think people can absolutely tell if there isn't like a principled backing behind this usage.
Back to the very beginning of the conversation of clarity, like even it applies there to the use of AI. That is so interesting and so cool. I want to flip to other industry, speaker-focused industry. What is fresh? What is upcoming within the industry that you feel excited about that you're aligning with?
Yeah, so for me, I think that it's really just kind of like diversity in style. I think that, when we talk about being aged out from a customer, like I would consider myself a sneakerhead, a sneaker collector, but I'm also in my 30s, right? So that means something different to a kid who might just be getting into sneaker culture today, right? So we see trends happen. You see running shoes being more popular or designer shoes. Like I don't even know where these kids get money sometimes, right? Like be like 17 with Balenciagas on. Like how? Like doesn't even okay. But the stories that were told that got me into sneaker culture they're in the past, right? Type of thing. So that nostalgia hits different for me than somebody who didn't experience it or didn't grow up with it as like a history moment in the culture, right? They're forming their own, right? So I think that for us, and also like the world has gotten so much bigger and more accessible. Like I remember when sneaker blogs and the internet were just kind of like starting, right? And it's the same for any kind of like subculture. You probably, whether you collect cards or anything like that, there's a subculture there. And as the internet grew and I started to be able to find other people who had like-minded interests in my own city or elsewhere, the world grew to me, right? But I think the youth today, they have so much access to the world at large, right? So you could be a kid from Detroit, but your favorite rapper is from Chicago, and it's influencing your style of how you wear your hair and your shoes and everything, right? So I think that sometimes there feels like there's like this kind of like gatekeepy kind of like layer within fashion that's like, oh, you don't know about this brand, you're not really like that, or you didn't, have this shoe growing up. But I think that being open to like how things are evolving, and how the youth is kind of like establishing their own kind of like space. We had a basketball tournament in Chicago over the summer, and there's like NBA players there and like signing autographs and stuff, and kids like kind of didn't care. But then like streamers came, from like YouTube or, different outlets, and they were like losing their shit, right? Type of thing, like they want that guy's autograph, type of thing. And they're evolving in what their intake is and what they see, and that's informing their choices and their decisions on things as well, So I think brands just really need to be more open to how things are evolving and communicating with the customer as they go, because you can, like the sneaker culture story is always going to be there, right? There's always going to be a community around it, right? But that customer is going to evolve over time, and it should, right? And I think it's better to be open to that and be a bridge of that, and you'll find there's more connection. Like I like designer shoes too, kids. Like you'll find a bridge of connectivity at some point. But if you're blocked off and you're not open to it, you're gonna lose the audience altogether.
What would you add to that, Lizzie?
Oh my gosh, not much. No,
You go first next time. Sorry.
No. I think biggest thing that's exciting to me right now is sort of like decentralizing the powers in sneaker world. So I mean, like the Nikes, the Adidas, they're still there, they're still always going to be strong, but we're seeing sort of this flattening of the landscape where equal opportunity for designers of all shapes and sizes. We see, like Don said, the rise of ASICs, Zuno. We're seeing customs from artists who are, literally just working on their own in a studio in New York and Oklahoma, posting it on the internet and then getting a sneaker deal. We see the blow up of a lot of, personally, I'm very excited about the blow up and inclusion of women's sports and sneaker culture. That's been, it's always been here, but it's getting its due time. And we look at releases like Asia Wilson's pair that we're selling out across the board. Doesn't matter if it was a women's only release. That's been really huge. I think we're starting to see the ripple effect of that. We see like Cecile Bonson pairing with ASICs. I'll try to not get too nerdy. But I think we're getting this sort of opening of an opportunity for art and equality and inclusion to really come into sneaker culture at the top of the consumer scale, which I think it hasn't always been. Those people haven't been getting the voice and the opportunity and the story. And that's sort of the space that I think we're really excited to continue to dive into, pairing with those people, amplifying those voices, and figuring out what's next.
Oh, I'll add to that. I also like seeing more independent brands get love, right? Like independent designers just getting out the mud and people branching out from the main kind of like vendors all the time and like being able to take a chance. And so I think that's really dope to see. And like, I think it's Nice Kicks, one of the footwear outlets. They actually have a category. They do like sneaker of the year awards type of thing. And they have a category for independent brands. And I don't know if they had it last year, if they brought it this year, but either way, I thought that was really dope to see. Like, yo, like people are not just interested in only supporting the big names all the time. It's like, yo, if this is dope and I like it, I can wear it, right? You know, type of thing and branching out. I think that's amazing for designers and creators for them to kind of get that love on the platform like that as well. So that's something that's been exciting to see too.
There's just so much wisdom here. Like, I'm just so blown away. I have one final question for you, and then I want to take it to you all and grab a couple questions from the audience to share. And my question is, what is maybe one piece of just encouragement or wisdom you could give to this room? I always like the question of, if you have a microphone, you do, and you had the whole world as your audience, and you had one message that you felt like it was yours to share, what would it be?
Creative is a team sport. That's like number one thing that I wish I could tattoo on my forehead. Creative is a team sport. No art is worth bad behavior. The people who are in the room with you are just as important, if not more important than yourself. I think the biggest thing for me is like ego death in creative changed everything for me. I want to be the least experienced person in the room. I want to be surrounded by people who are smarter than me, have more experience than me, are going to challenge the work, are going to speak up and make my skills that much sharper. And you can't do that unless you're willing to be a team player on the whole thing.
Does anybody in here, or is anyone familiar with the term imposter syndrome? So people raise their hands, they all have experienced that, right? So like what is that, right? It's basically you in the middle of doing something and telling yourself that you can't do it. It's like you're already doing the thing, right? It's like you got a promotion or you got a job or you got an offer and you're like, I don't deserve this. It's like you did it though, you got the thing, right? So it's just kind of like believing in yourself, right? Type of thing, and understanding that I don't want to say that doesn't exist. I don't want to tell nobody about their mental health, type of thing, but you're not an imposter. Like you are where you're supposed to be. You worked for it, and sometimes it's good to reflect on how you got there, right? Like I do think it's the nature of people. I think bias is in the nature of people, so there'll always be favoritism and racism and nepotism, a lot of things, a lot of isms, right? Type of thing. But you can get far through hard work. You can. Sometimes people like you because you do good things, right? So maybe you gained favor because you're dope. Maybe you gained favor because you worked for that space. Maybe you gained favor because you actually put in the work and it was rewarded. Sometimes good things happen to good people, right? Type of thing. So it's really just to like believe in yourself and keep going. And when you are facing those walls, like just take a breath, right? Take a step back, go for a walk, and really just think through like, yo, I did do the work, I did put the work in here, regardless of what the noise is or what somebody else might be telling you or what happened in the background. Like you do deserve the spot that you're in and that you worked for, and you are enough in that space. So if you are feeling imposter syndrome, just really think through like, yo, how am I imposter? I'm literally already doing the thing that I'm telling myself I can't do, right? And I'm a firm believer, like, I don't think that I'm the smartest person in the room, but I feel like no one can outwork me. So I also feel like, yo, if someone else can do it, I can do it. It's how I literally how I think, outside of like some crazy like acrobatic physical things probably. But like I genuinely think that like, yo, like this person isn't that much smarter than me where I can't accomplish the same thing. So like if someone else can do it, I know that I can. So, but that does start with having a belief in yourself and kind of dismissing that imposter syndrome and understanding like, yo, you already are doing dope shit. That's why you got that opportunity. That's why you got that thing. So just believe in yourself.
So expansive. I love that. That was really good. I'm like taking that advice. I'm like,
Yeah, nobody knows what they're doing. Do whatever you want.
It's the most empowering thought when you're like literally everyone's picking it up. Might as well do the thing.
I think maybe a piece of advice that I'd give, and maybe it's just like a little piece to take with you through the years, just I think maybe during times of ambiguity or rapid change and transition, maybe it's feeling a little confusing. I think there's something so powerful about going back to how much you know yourself and your strength. I've seen a lot of people in ambiguity try very quickly to adapt skills or become a person that they think they need to be to get through that ambiguity. But I really feel like if you know yourself and you know your strength, whether it's at work or I don't know, whatever's happening, you want that to shine. And I think that, you know, leaning on whether it's like art direction or design or, you know, research or whatever it is, like that will be a space that grounds you and you will glow because of it. And I think in a year where we're talking about a lot of things happening, just leaning back on that, I think, will be a self-stabilizing force.
So beautiful. Seriously, I feel so encouraged. And we have time for maybe 2 questions. Great, you're the first person I saw. Here, do you want to come up here? Yes? Here you go.
Hi, I just had a question for you all. So I'm looking at everyone's title and you all are directors. And so I guess my question for each of you is how do you open the door for other creatives to step into the fields that you all are in?
So, should I go first or do you want to?
Should we do it together at the same time?
Just both start talking. No, so for me as an individual, I'm like a people person, right? You know, so we family, I tell you. I literally got promoted this week. So we gotta update this. But as I'm, you know, receiving like my offer from, you know, like verbally from my direct report, my very first question was around my team. I said, how do we build layers within this, right? You know, like, I'm the one getting promoted, I'm talking about other people, right? You know, so I'm like, I'm gonna have a broader team of managers who are working beneath me. But I don't have a layer of like senior managers, a layer of directors, so they don't have something to work up to, right? You know, type of thing. So I'm literally asking the question of, okay, so how are we managing the budget for their salary so that we can actually give them an opportunity for growth? That's how you retain talent, right? You know, type of thing. You're doing a good job, let's level you up. Where do you want to go within our organization? Where do you want to, even if it's somewhere else at some point, like this might be a step for you to go somewhere else. Either way, I want to empower you to be able to make that choice. As far as like how we work with creatives like outside or externally within our, outside of our organization, it's kind of like we talked about earlier. I think that being really intentional with, sometimes you do things in-house, but like Lizzie was saying, we're not the person that we're creating for all the time, right? You know, so identifying people who are, right? You know, so if we are doing a project that's focused on women, that's focused on a certain community, okay, who's the person to tell that story? Let's bring them in, right? As opposed to just trying to make up something internally or create a brief without that visibility, right? You know, type of thing. And it's specifically on our team with InfoLocker, we're very intentional with working with just creatives in general, right? So we hire a lot of like agencies to execute things, but we don't just hand the project off, right? You know, we're looking at who's going to be the photographer on this project. If we have a DJ, if we have a stylist, all these different things, you know, so that we're spreading work across, you know, type of thing. So I think it's really just being intentional and starting with people in mind. I think something I say a lot within our team is on the other end of every decision that we make is a person. And it seems little, right? You know, just you might, we just hire somebody, but you're not thinking about like the output, right? You know, you have to think about every decision you make. There's a person on the other side of that, and how is this going to affect that person?
I was thinking about your question when I ran like a 4-person studio in Chicago or a 22-person org at Square. Or now I'm in IC and I'm more in a project leadership and mentorship space. But I think it's really important to me outside of hiring and, you know, trying to hold some seats in the Midwest for people to come work at my studio. It starts with transparency. Like really appreciate context and insights when I'm working, and so when I want to see someone grow, I want to empower them with the autonomy of information and teach as I go. I really feel like when building a team, if I can go away for a while, or like I can be a human and sit out for something and things run smoothly, like that is such a sign of health. And I think that starts a lot with transparency, not withholding, not giving everything all at once, because sometimes people are like, I just want to be heads down, but I really believe there's something equitable about sharing information at the right time so that you can teach someone to make decisions in the way that you have learned to make decisions.
I love that. I think especially also being women in the industry, salary transparency, negotiation transparency, huge. I think I have a lot of leaders who have helped me in that respect. For me, I think I'm a big believer in like if you're up, send the elevator back down, because like someone sent it down for you, ideally. The biggest learnings I've ever had in creative are because someone made space or made time for me to just be in the room. Whether that's like you're 16 and I'm like, I will carry 85 pounds of your gear if you let me on the studio set. Which is like honestly how I got into photography. It's how I learned how to shoot with strobes, how to be in studio. So I think you also get what you ask for, and not to put that all on the individual, but I think it goes in reverse. So like I make a big point for myself now, if I'm writing into other creatives, figure out if there's an opportunity for you to come work with us on set, what are you interested in? How can I also help expose people to opportunities and careers in the arts? It's stuff that, growing up with two parents who were math and science people, they didn't really get it, right? It's not always such a clear linear path, to your point. Like it's really not like how do you go from A to Z in any of these, and I guarantee you the path for all three of us was completely different in this org or any other. So I think networking is huge. This event is incredible. Huge shout out to Creative Mornings. Like if this was around when I was starting, if this was around when I was starting, I think I probably would have had a jump start. I'd say take advantage of it. I know I'm probably speaking for all three of us. Come talk to us. I'll give my number to anyone if I can help you with advice or an opportunity or getting you connected with someone. I think that's the only way we all win in this industry.
I wish we could do a million more questions, but we're at time, and I always want to be respectful of everybody's time, but guys, freaking round of applause. Thank you. I was just whispering to the team, I think this is just the best start to the year ever. So thank you so much for your wisdom and for your time. And thank you to all of you for coming out for this such special morning. Just, I want to invite you already next month, February 20th, we're going to be right here doing the same thing with a whole different group of people. And actually, I can sneak preview, we're going to be doing our first ever short film screenings. And we have a whole crew of female Black filmmakers for celebrating Black History Month and showcasing their amazing. I don't know if this quote that I'm here. So it's really special work to look forward to. But first we have tonight at 2 James Spirits, 5 p.m. You don't have to RSVP. Show up, bring your friends, bring your partners, all the things. It's going to be a wonderful time.
I got 2 James people still here.
2 James people, Sophia?
I would like to meet y'all. I like whiskey.
Great.
So if you're
You should get to come tonight.
We're big fans.
Amazing. And again, thank you to our amazing partners who you all made this happen. So appreciative. We'll see you tonight.